Have you ever walked away from a conversation and thought, why do I feel so small? Like something invisible just chipped away at you, but you can't quite explain what happened. It's not always the words they use. Sometimes it's the words they don't use, the way they interrupt you, the way they roll their eyes, the way they talk over you or simply pretend like you're not there at all. It's subtle, but it stings, and over time, it builds up. That silent sting of being disrespected becomes a wound you carry around, one that nobody sees, but you feel it every single day. You start second-guessing yourself, wondering if maybe you're too sensitive, if maybe you're imagining it, but deep down, you know you're not. You can feel the shift in energy when you walk into a room. You know what it feels like when someone doesn't value your voice, your presence, your worth, and it hurts, not just because of what they did, but because you stayed silent. You let it slide, again. And every time you do, a piece of you begins to dim. That fire inside you, it gets smaller. That confidence you worked so hard to build, it starts to shake. But let me tell you something that most people never will. You're not crazy, you're not weak, and you're definitely not imagining things. What you're feeling is real, and you're not alone. So many people walk through life silently enduring disrespect, convincing themselves to stay quiet for the sake of peace, while losing their own inner peace in the process. But it doesn't have to be that way. You can take your power back, not by yelling, not by begging, but by standing up quietly and confidently and saying, no more. This moment, right now, can be your turning point. The moment you stop shrinking to fit in places that weren't built for you. The moment you stop tolerating people who can't see your value. The moment you stop giving others permission to treat you like you don't matter. Because you do matter. And the world begins to reflect that the second you start believing it. Respect isn't something you chase, it's something you embody. And when you carry yourself with unshakable self-worth, the world has no choice but to respond. Stay with me. Because what you're about to hear can shift your entire mindset. This isn't about becoming cold or hard. It's about becoming strong, clear, untouchable. In the next few minutes, you'll learn how to handle the people who don't respect you, not through anger, but through power. Your power. You'll discover how to protect your peace, stand your ground, and never let someone else make you feel small again. This is your moment to rise, to draw the line, to take control of how the world treats you, by first changing how you treat you. Ready? Let's begin. Some people will never give you the respect you deserve, not because of anything you've done wrong, but because of everything that threatens them when you simply stand in your truth. Your calm intimidates their chaos. Your confidence exposes their insecurity. Your presence reminds them of what they lack, and instead of rising, they tear down. They belittle, they ignore, they twist. But here's the truth. Their disrespect says more about them than it ever will about you. It's not your reflection, it's theirs. The danger is not in what they do, it's in what you start to believe because of it. When someone consistently disrespects you, your mind can begin to play tricks. It whispers doubts. It distorts your perception. It tells you to shrink, to keep quiet, to not rock the boat. And over time, you adapt. You lower your voice. You soften your opinions. You tiptoe around people who never once considered your feelings. That's how power is stolen. Not through force, but through slow erosion. One comment, one interruption, one look at a time. And before you know it, you've built your life around avoiding disrespect, instead of demanding respect. But you weren't meant to tiptoe through life. You weren't built to be small. The reason it hurts so deeply is because a part of you still knows who you really are. And that part of you is waiting for you to stop explaining, waiting for you to stop doubting, waiting for you to remember that respect is not something others decide to give you. It's something you command through how you carry yourself. That doesn't mean arrogance. It means alignment. It means no longer asking for permission to be treated like you matter. Understanding this creates freedom. When you stop taking their behavior personally, you start to see it clearly. You begin to notice the patterns, the triggers, the cycles, and more importantly, you stop dancing around them. Disrespect no longer becomes something you internalize. It becomes something you identify and respond to with clarity. That shift changes everything. It gives you the power to respond with purpose instead of pain, to choose your energy, to guard your peace. You're not here to fix other people's wounds. You're not here to convince anyone of your worth. You're here to live in a way that reflects it, whether they see it or not. That's the power of inner respect. It no longer depends on outer validation. And when you stop depending on how others treat you to define how you feel about yourself, you become unshakable. This is about mental freedom, emotional control, psychological strength, the kind that can't be taken, only built. Right now, you are building it, word by word, thought by thought, choice by choice. Keep going. Because when you finally stop giving weight to those who refuse to respect you, you create space for the world to see you clearly, for who you truly are, without apology, without shame, and without limits. The way people treat you is often a reflection of what you've taught them is acceptable. Every time you stay silent when disrespected, you reinforce their behavior. Every time you excuse it, you give it permission. Not intentionally, but consistently. The human mind learns through repetition, and so do the people around you. When you tolerate the unacceptable, you slowly train others to believe it's normal. Respect doesn't begin when they decide to give it. It begins when you decide to stop tolerating anything less. This isn't about being aggressive, it's about being clear. Clarity is power. When you stop sending mixed signals, when you stop laughing at disrespect just to keep the peace, you begin to send a different kind of message. A message that says, I respect myself enough to walk away from anything that doesn't. That's not ego, that's survival. And it's the foundation of real strength. Boundaries don't push people away. They filter the wrong ones out. They make room for the ones who see you, hear you, and treat you like you matter, without being asked. You don't have to explain your boundaries. You don't have to justify your standards. You don't even have to be angry. You just have to decide. Decide what kind of energy you allow in your space. Decide what kind of words are welcome around you. Decide how you respond when someone crosses the line. Because they will. Not everyone is going to respect you, but everyone is going to notice how you carry yourself. If you show up uncertain, unsure, unstable, they will test you. But if you show up rooted, grounded, and unshakable, they will adjust. This is how you break the pattern. By becoming someone who commands respect without speaking a word. Your presence becomes the boundary, your confidence becomes the warning, and your peace becomes the signal that you don't entertain chaos, confusion, or cruelty. You don't need to raise your voice. You just need to raise your standards. Because once you do, the people who don't belong will remove themselves. Not because you forced them out, but because they no longer fit into the world you've created around your worth. Your power is not in controlling others. It's in mastering yourself, in making daily decisions that align with your values, in choosing silence when it protects your peace, in choosing words when they defend your truth, in choosing distance when someone refuses to rise to the level of mutual respect, and most of all, in choosing you every single time. Not from a place of pride, but from a place of purpose. Because the more you choose yourself, the more the world begins to reflect the energy you've been waiting to receive. You are not here to be tolerated. You are here to be respected. But that begins with how you see yourself. Raise the standard, draw the line, and never lower it for anyone who refuses to meet you where you stand. Most people who disrespect others aren't even aware they're doing it. They're reacting, projecting, deflecting. Their behavior is often rooted in fear. Fear of losing control, fear of feeling inferior, fear of being exposed. So they tear down what threatens them. They minimize what shines too brightly. They attack what they don't understand. It's not personal, but it is painful. And if you don't recognize the pattern, you'll spend your life trying to earn the approval of people who aren't even capable of giving it. You'll fight for scraps of validation from those who only feel powerful when others feel small. You don't need that kind of approval. It's not real. It's transactional, conditional, fleeting. What you need, what you deserve, is self-respect so deep that no one's words can shake it. A foundation so solid that when someone tries to shake your value, they only reveal their own instability. This kind of inner strength doesn't come from being liked. It comes from being whole, from knowing who you are, even when others try to convince you otherwise. From choosing to stand tall, not because they applaud, but because you decide you're worth it. When someone disrespects you, your reaction teaches them what you believe about yourself. If you ignore it out of fear, they learn you're afraid. If you lash out from insecurity, they learn you're easy to provoke. But if you respond with calm, grounded clarity, they see something different. They see someone who knows their value, someone who cannot be manipulated, someone who refuses to let disrespect define the tone of the room. That kind of presence is unteachable. It's built, and you're building it now. This is not about becoming untouchable. It's about becoming unshakable. You still feel, but you no longer fall. You still care, but you no longer chase. You still speak, but only when it serves your peace, not your pride. Every reaction becomes a choice, not a reflex. Every word becomes intentional, not emotional. You stop being pulled into chaos and start becoming the calm in the storm. That's power, quiet, steady, unmovable, the kind that demands respect without needing to fight for it. The truth is, people can only meet you at the level of their own awareness. Some will never rise. And that's okay. It's not your job to fix them. Your only responsibility is to rise above them without losing yourself, to protect your energy, your standards, your peace. Not by building walls, but by building self-respect so strong that nothing toxic can survive in its presence. You're not here to teach people how to respect you by force. You're here to show them through example. Let your energy be the filter. Let your boundaries be the test. Let your self-worth be the voice that speaks before you even say a word. And above all, never forget, the way you allow yourself to be treated sets the tone for every relationship in your life. Raise the tone. Set the standard. Become the example. When you begin to respect yourself deeply, something shifts. You stop chasing closure from people who never cared. You stop waiting for apologies that will never come. You stop explaining your worth to those committed to misunderstanding you. The need for outside recognition dissolves, and in its place rises a quiet certainty that you are enough, just as you are. That you don't need loud voices to echo your value. That your presence, your truth, your boundaries are more than enough. And when you live in that space, unshaken, unmoved, unbothered, you become magnetic in a way no approval ever could replicate. Disrespect loses power when you no longer need anything from the person giving it. When your sense of identity is no longer on the line, you don't shrink to protect it. You expand to protect your peace. The people who once triggered you, controlled you, pulled you into emotional spirals, they stop having access, not because you hate them, not because you want revenge, but because you have risen above their reach. There's nothing left for them to push against. You're no longer emotionally available to be disrespected. And that's what real growth looks like. You're not just reacting better. You're changing at the core. Your standards are rising. Your emotional energy is maturing. Your tolerance for anything misaligned with your worth is shrinking. You begin to notice when someone's tone is off, and instead of wondering what you did wrong, you recognize it for what it is, theirs to carry. That shift is powerful. It doesn't make you bitter. It makes you free. People who don't respect you often thrive on the belief that you won't walk away. They count on your silence, your guilt, your emotional attachment. But the day you choose yourself is the day everything changes. Not because they change, but because you do. You stop arguing with small minds. You stop explaining truth to closed hearts. You stop participating in conversations that cost your inner peace. Disrespect becomes your signal, not your sentence. A signal to step back, step away, and step into your higher self. You are not difficult for expecting respect. You are not harsh for drawing boundaries. You are not cold for removing yourself from people who continuously hurt you. That is strength. That is maturity. That is the highest form of self-care. You're not becoming hardened. You're becoming focused, clear, aligned. The more you honor yourself, the more the world reflects it back in unexpected ways. Better connections, deeper peace, higher standards, and above all, a relationship with yourself that can't be shaken. This is what you were made for, not survival, but sovereignty. A life where you don't react to disrespect, because you've built a reality where it has no place. Keep choosing yourself. Keep protecting your peace. Keep honoring your value, not just in words, but in actions. That's how you rise. That's how you lead. And that's how you become untouchable, not by force, but by truth. There is nothing more powerful than someone who knows their worth and no longer asks the world to confirm it. When you reach that place, disrespect doesn't shake you. It reveals people. It shows you who is ready to meet you with the same energy you offer, and who only came to benefit from your silence. You stop wasting time decoding mixed signals or chasing crumbs of kindness. You stop trying to fix what was never yours to repair. You see people clearly, not through the lens of your hope, but through the lens of your healed vision. And with that clarity, you act, not out of pain, but out of power. Most people are never taught how to respond to disrespect without becoming either passive or aggressive. But there's a third way, a way of unshakable calm, unwavering self-respect, and firm presence. This is where true power lives. You don't have to match their energy. You don't have to raise your voice to meet their chaos. When someone disrespects you, you meet them with stillness. You speak without rushing. You stand without flinching. You make it clear that you heard them, but you are not moved by them. That energy forces people to reconsider how they show up around you. You cannot control how others behave, but you can control the standard that determines whether they get access to your space, and that standard must be unwavering, because people will test it. Not always out of malice, sometimes out of habit, but when they meet someone who doesn't bend just to be liked, doesn't tolerate discomfort just to avoid confrontation, doesn't stay silent just to keep things easy. They adjust, or they disappear. Either outcome brings peace. Every time you respond with clarity instead of confusion, you reinforce your value. Every time you stand tall instead of shrinking, you remind yourself of who you've become. Every time you walk away from something that dishonors your spirit, you evolve. Disrespect only hurts when you still believe it means something about you. But when you know your worth, it loses its sting. It no longer defines you, it reveals them. And that shift is everything. The world reflects back how you feel about yourself. If you believe you are worthy, you will stop settling for halfway love, halfway attention, halfway respect. You will stop explaining why you deserve to be treated well. You will live it, breathe it, embody it. And the people who don't rise to meet that energy will quietly fall away, not because you forced them, but because they no longer fit the frequency of your life. This is the moment to decide that your value is not up for debate. Not now, not ever. You've spent enough time trying to earn what should have been given freely. Enough time carrying the weight of other people's disrespect and calling it your own burden. Let it go. Rise above it. Stand in your truth. Because once you fully accept who you are, nothing outside of you can take it away. When you stop chasing respect, you begin to attract it, not through force but through alignment. You align your actions with your standards. You align your words with your truth. You align your presence with your purpose. And that alignment becomes a signal. It tells the world, without needing to shout, who you are and what you allow. It doesn't matter who approves of it. What matters is that you're no longer living out of reaction. You're leading from conviction. And that shift creates a life that reflects back the strength you chose, not the weakness you tolerated. Too often, people wait for permission to set boundaries. They wait for things to get bad enough before they walk away. But waiting is a trap, because the longer you accept disrespect, the harder it becomes to remember what respect even looks like. You normalize the abnormal. You rationalize the intolerable. And eventually, you forget that you ever deserved more. That's how disrespect breaks people. Not in a single moment, but slowly. In the quiet spaces where self-worth once lived. But no matter how long you've accepted less, the moment you choose more, everything begins to change. You are not obligated to explain your standards. You are not required to justify your peace. You do not need to feel guilty for growing out of environments that shrink you. The people who respect themselves will understand you. The people who don't will resist you. Let them. Their resistance is not your problem. Their reaction is not your responsibility. Your only job is to remain loyal to your growth. Because the more loyal you are to your values, the less interested you become in convincing others to see them. Let go of the need to be liked by everyone. Let go of the fear that standing firm will make you alone. What's the point of being surrounded by people who only accept the version of you that keeps them comfortable? What's the point of blending in when you were made to stand apart? Real peace isn't found in pleasing others. It's found in honoring yourself, in knowing that you no longer have to betray your boundaries to feel accepted, in trusting that whoever's meant for your life will meet you at your truth, not your silence. You're not too much for expecting the bare minimum of decency. You're not sensitive for noticing when energy shifts. You're not difficult for protecting your peace. You are self-aware. You are evolving. You are stepping into a season where your voice is no longer quieted by fear, where your worth is no longer negotiated, where your presence is no longer given to those who cannot carry it with care. That kind of shift isn't small, it's revolutionary. Respect starts within. When it lives in you, it radiates through you, and that energy becomes your shield. You no longer need to fight for your place, you simply take it. And those who truly see you will never question why you stand where you do. Every time you choose not to respond to disrespect with chaos, you gain control. Control over your energy, your decisions, your direction. That control is sacred, because the more control you build within, the less power anyone has over you from the outside. You don't need to raise your voice. You don't need to explain yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. All you need to do is rise above the noise, not because you're better, but because you're done. Done lowering yourself to be heard, done shrinking just to avoid conflict, done making excuses for people who never saw your value to begin with. Your strength isn't in how loud you respond. It's in how little you let disrespect define you. The moment you stop seeking validation from those who disrespect you is the moment you step into emotional freedom. Because real freedom is not found in changing their behavior. It's found in changing your response to it. When you decide that not every action deserves your reaction, you protect your power. And when your power is protected, your peace becomes permanent. You stop letting others write your narrative. You stop letting their behavior decide your worth. You begin to lead your life, not react to it. There's a difference between walking away because you're hurt and walking away because you've healed. When you're hurt, you leave looking back. When you're healed, you leave without needing closure. Because healing teaches you that closure isn't something they give. It's something you create. It's the moment you say, I don't need your respect to know I deserve it. That moment becomes a turning point, a rebirth, where you no longer negotiate your boundaries, beg for decency, or tolerate low energy just to keep the peace. And yes, choosing yourself will cost you. It will cost you people who only stayed because you didn't speak up. It will cost you comfort. It will cost you silence. But it will give you everything that truly matters. Clarity, strength, alignment, and most of all, self-respect. The kind that no one can hand you and no one can take away. The kind that changes how you walk, how you speak, how you think. You become someone people can't manipulate. Someone whose energy speaks for itself. Someone who respects themselves so deeply that they only attract those who reflect it back. There's no weakness in refusing to be disrespected. The real weakness is abandoning yourself to keep others comfortable. You were not made to bend for those who never learned how to stand beside you. You were made to rise, to walk in truth, to carry yourself with the quiet confidence of someone who knows they deserve better and refuses to settle for anything less. That isn't pride, that's power. The kind of power that grows in silence, moves with grace, and lives in every decision you make to honor yourself, no matter who it offends. You don't rise by being louder than the ones who try to silence you. You rise by no longer needing their silence to validate your voice. You rise by staying rooted in who you are, even when others try to pull you into who they need you to be. Disrespect often comes from those who fear your truth, because your truth reflects everything they refuse to face within themselves. So they mock it, they minimize it, they twist it. But no matter how many times they try to reduce you, your value never shrinks. Your presence never fades. Your worth remains whole, untouched by their opinions. The need to defend yourself disappears when you understand your identity, doesn't live in their understanding. You're not here to be interpreted correctly by everyone. You're here to live in alignment with your highest self, and that will naturally offend those who are still avoiding their own. Let them misunderstand you. Let them call your clarity arrogance, your boundaries selfish, your growth disloyal. Their labels mean nothing in the face of your purpose. You are not defined by their comfort. You are defined by your courage to honor what is real. Every time you stand firm in your truth, you send a message, not to the world but to yourself. A message that says, I will not abandon who I am to keep others comfortable. That message echoes louder than any insult, any dismissal, any moment of disrespect. It becomes the rhythm of your energy, the frequency of your life, and those who are meant to walk with you will hear it, not because you shouted, but because your presence speaks for itself. The more you value peace, the more you will refuse to sit at tables where your presence is tolerated but not honored. The more you value honesty, the more distance you'll create from those who hide behind fake smiles and shallow words. And the more you value yourself, the more you will stop asking people to see you clearly. You'll simply let them show you who they are, and believe them the first time. That clarity is a gift. Don't resist it. Use it. Disrespect is a mirror. It shows you who someone is. But it also shows you where your work is. If it still controls your emotions, you still have healing to do. If it still defines your mood, you still have inner ground to claim. Use it as fuel. Let every act of disrespect be a signal, not of defeat, but of direction. A reminder to protect your energy, refine your circle, and raise your standards higher than ever before. You owe no one your silence in the face of harm. You owe no one your tolerance for behavior that diminishes you. You owe only yourself the truth. And that truth is this: you are not here to be accepted by those who cannot honor your presence. You are here to rise, with or without their respect, because the most powerful form of respect is the one you give yourself. Respecting yourself doesn't always look like confrontation. Sometimes it looks like silence. Sometimes it looks like distance. Sometimes it looks like choosing not to engage when every part of you wants to respond. Because not every action deserves your energy. Not every insult needs your explanation. Not every person deserves front row access to your mind, your heart, or your peace. The moment you realize this, your life begins to change. You no longer spend your days reacting to everything that offends you. You start responding only to what aligns with you. That shift is freedom. When you stop giving energy to people who drain it, your clarity increases. You begin to see who you became small for, who you bent your standards for, who you stayed silent around to keep their approval. And as that truth becomes clear, you no longer feel guilt for choosing yourself. You feel grounded, you feel whole, you feel powerful, not because they gave you anything, but because you took your energy back. Respecting yourself isn't a reaction, it's a decision. and it's a decision you must make daily. You cannot rise and stay rooted in places that require you to shrink. You cannot become the person you're meant to be while carrying the weight of those who refuse to grow. And you cannot build peace while tolerating disrespect. At some point, you must choose. Do you want their acceptance, or do you want your freedom? Because you will not have both. You will not be fully you and fully accepted by people who benefit from a version of you that stays quiet, agreeable, and easy to dismiss. You were not made for permission. You were made for presence, for truth, for purpose. And purpose doesn't bow to disrespect. It doesn't wait for approval. It walks forward, even when it's misunderstood, even when it's ignored, even when it's rejected. Because the one thing stronger than disrespect is a person who knows who they are and refuses to be moved by anything that doesn't honor that truth. Let your life become the boundary. Let your consistency be the standard. Let your self-respect do the talking when your words are no longer worth wasting. Some people only learn through distance, through absence, through the space created when you no longer play the role they assigned to you. And that's not cruelty. That's growth. That's clarity. That's what it means to stop explaining your worth and start embodying it. This is your permission to stop negotiating with people who never intended to meet you with honesty. Stop hoping they'll change while you keep sacrificing your peace. Start choosing what reflects your value, not what tests it. Because every time you tolerate disrespect, you teach yourself that peace isn't worth protecting. And every time you draw a line, you prove that it is. Stand firm, walk tall, and remember that the strongest boundary you'll ever set is the one where you finally say, without apology, "This is where I end," and you no longer begin. There comes a moment when silence becomes strength, when walking away speaks louder than any argument, and when your absence becomes your most powerful answer. That moment arrives when you finally realize that your worth is not up for negotiation. You don't need to convince someone to value you. You don't need to beg to be seen. You don't need to chase after respect like it's something you must earn through self-sacrifice. Respect isn't something you force from others. It's something you embody within yourself. When it's real, it radiates, and those who recognize it will never treat it casually. The deepest form of power is quiet. It doesn't perform. It doesn't compete. It doesn't scream to be noticed. It simply exists, calm, unshakable, unmoved. And when you carry that within you, the opinions of others begin to lose their grip. The disrespect that once stirred your emotions becomes irrelevant, not because you stopped caring, but because you started choosing. You started choosing your sanity, your peace, your future. You stopped giving pieces of your soul to people who never knew how to hold them. That is not weakness. That is mastery. It's easy to react. It's easy to snap back. But it takes far more strength to stay grounded when someone tries to provoke you, to stay centered when someone tries to make you small. Their behavior is not a reflection of your value. It is a mirror of their own internal war. Hurt people hurt others. Insecure people attack confidence. Weak people test strength. That's not your burden to carry. Your only responsibility is to remain whole, no matter how fractured the world around you tries to become. Protecting your energy means being willing to let go, not with resentment, not with bitterness, but with clarity. When someone shows you through their actions that they do not respect you, believe them. Stop rewriting the story to protect their potential. Stop holding on to who they could be if they healed. Start honoring what they've already shown you, because ignoring reality is self-abandonment disguised as loyalty. You deserve better than that. You deserve to be met with the same level of presence and respect you give so freely to others. Every time you allow someone to stay in your life after they've disrespected you without change, you teach your nervous system that chaos is normal. You teach your heart that pain is love. You teach your mind that discomfort is home. And you deserve better teachers. You deserve to rewrite that code, to create a life where peace isn't earned through tolerance, but through truth. A life where love doesn't come at the cost of your dignity. A life where your boundaries are not walls, but doors, protecting what's sacred, not keeping out what's real. Walk forward with that clarity. Not in anger, not in pride, but in deep self-respect. Because the more you value yourself, the less tolerance you'll have for anything that doesn't. And that shift will change everything. Respect begins where tolerance ends. When you stop tolerating what breaks your spirit, you begin building a life that honors it. Too often, people mistake patience for permission. They mistake your silence as weakness. They take your kindness as a cue to push boundaries, to test limits, to see how far they can go before you finally say enough. But your value was never meant to be stretched thin for the comfort of others. You were not made to carry the weight of other people's immaturity. You were not designed to keep peace at the cost of your own voice. You must stop expecting those who lack emotional intelligence to recognize the damage they cause. Some people are too unaware to see it, some are too selfish to care, and some are too broken to change. It is not your job to wait for them to evolve. It is your job to stop making excuses for their behavior and start taking responsibility for your healing. The sooner you stop tolerating disrespect, the sooner you allow space for respect to grow. Not just from others, but from yourself. Because self-respect is built every time you honor what you feel, speak what is true, and walk away from what is harmful. You cannot change someone who refuses to see their own patterns. But you can change what you allow. You can shift the dynamic the moment you realize you no longer owe them access. Your attention is a currency. Your time is a resource. Your energy is an investment. And if someone continually disrespects you, they do not deserve those gifts. Giving them more of yourself will not teach them how to value you. It will only teach them how to keep taking from you without consequence. This is how you begin to lose yourself, in the slow erosion of boundaries disguised as patience. But you can reclaim your worth, one boundary at a time, one decision at a time. Every time you choose yourself over the comfort of being accepted, you grow stronger. Every time you say no without guilt, you reinforce your power. Every time you walk away instead of begging someone to understand you, you send a message to your soul that you are finally listening. And when your soul feels heard, your life begins to align. The people who truly respect you won't need to be convinced. They won't test your limits. They won't make you doubt yourself. They will recognize your strength and meet it with their own. But to find those people, you must first be willing to leave behind those who can't see past their ego. You must be brave enough to close the chapter that keeps repeating. And you must be clear enough to know that peace is not found in being liked by everyone. It's found in being true to yourself, even when it costs you approval. Choose that kind of peace, that kind of truth, that kind of freedom, because anything less is too expensive for the soul you are becoming. The moment you stop needing external validation is the moment you reclaim your personal power. When you no longer depend on others to see your value, you begin to live from within. That's when everything shifts. Because if respect can be taken away by someone else's approval, it was never truly yours. Real self-worth doesn't rise or fall with opinions. It stands steady, like a mountain that doesn't move when the weather changes. That kind of strength comes from knowing who you are. Even when others try to define you by their standards, their moods, or their broken perception, not everyone will understand your growth. Some people will resent it. Your boundaries will offend those who benefited from your lack of them. Your peace will irritate those addicted to drama. Your confidence will threaten those who build their worth on control. But you cannot let the discomfort of others make you shrink. You cannot play small so they feel tall. That is not kindness. That is self-sabotage in disguise. You owe no one your silence when their actions are loud with disrespect. You owe no one your presence when they treat you like you're disposable. You owe no one your forgiveness when they aren't willing to change. You teach the world how to treat you by what you tolerate. Every time you excuse bad behavior, you're teaching someone that your dignity has a price. Every time you stay silent to keep the peace, you're telling your heart that its pain is irrelevant. That pattern must end. Because real peace is not found in avoiding conflict, it's found in living in alignment with your truth. And truth sometimes requires confrontation. Truth sometimes demands distance. Truth sometimes looks like walking away, not because you're weak, but because you finally believe you're worth more. This is where transformation begins, not in revenge, not in resentment, but in release. Releasing the need to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding you. Releasing the need to fix people who don't want healing. Releasing the need to seek closure from people who found comfort in your confusion. You don't need their apology. You need your freedom. And that starts when you stop making space for people who continually violate your soul. Courage means standing in the fire of your own power and not flinching when others try to extinguish it. It means being okay with not being liked if being liked requires losing yourself. It means realizing that your healing will upset the dynamics built on your pain, but choosing to heal anyway. That kind of bravery will cost you people, habits, and parts of your past. But what it gives you is far greater: clarity, strength, integrity, and most of all, peace. Peace that cannot be disturbed by anyone's lack of respect. Because you no longer seek your worth in their acceptance. You've already found it within yourself. And once you've tasted that kind of wholeness, you'll never settle for crumbs again. Not everyone is meant to go with you. Some people are only aligned with the version of you that tolerated being disrespected. The moment you evolve, they no longer recognize you, and that's not your burden to carry. Growth is not supposed to make everyone comfortable. It's supposed to make you free. When you stop allowing mistreatment and start honoring your worth, some doors close, and that's not a loss. That's a clearing. A necessary space being made for what aligns with the new standard you've set for yourself, and that standard must be non-negotiable. Respect is not a reward for good behavior. It's the minimum requirement for connection. You cannot beg someone to treat you right and still claim to value yourself. Every time you chase respect from someone unwilling to give it, you betray the part of you that knows you deserve more. That betrayal leaves scars. Scars that show up as self-doubt, as anxiety, as guilt for saying no, as fear of being alone. But you are not here to be liked at the cost of your dignity. You are here to be real, to be whole, to be free. And freedom begins with a decision to stop compromising your soul for approval that never fills you. The mind plays tricks when it's used to chaos. It tells you that silence is safer than confrontation, that walking away means you've given up, that setting boundaries is selfish. But those are old survival patterns, and survival is not the same as living. You don't owe anyone your continued presence in a space where you're only tolerated, not celebrated. Being around people who don't respect you chips away at your confidence piece by piece. It teaches you to settle, to shrink, to second-guess your own reality. But the moment you decide you're done with that cycle, you begin to rebuild, not with anger, but with clarity. Not to prove anything, but to protect everything inside you that was once too easy to overlook. Self-respect is not loud. It doesn't need to convince anyone. It speaks through your choices, through your silence, through the people you no longer argue with. It's a quiet fire that burns away what no longer fits. And that fire is necessary. Without it, you stay stuck in places where your presence is undervalued and your kindness is mistaken for weakness. But the truth is, your worth has never changed. It's only your awareness of it that grows. And once it grows, everything else must rise to meet it, or fall away. Let them misunderstand you. Let them walk away. Let them talk. Because none of it defines you. What defines you is your ability to choose yourself when others won't. What defines you is the moment you stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing your peace over their permission. That is where your power begins. That is where the shift becomes permanent. That is when you stop just surviving and start truly living, with intention, with truth, and with unwavering self-respect. You don't have to explain yourself to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You don't have to justify your boundaries, your silence, or your absence to those who never took the time to value your presence. Respect isn't something that should be earned with exhaustion. You shouldn't have to bleed emotionally just to be seen as worthy. The people who truly respect you won't need a reminder. They won't need to be convinced. They will already treat you with the care, consistency, and clarity that makes respect real. And those who don't, you owe them nothing. Not your time, not your energy, not your explanation. When you continue to tolerate disrespect, you send a message to your subconscious that your comfort doesn't matter, that your needs are secondary, that peace must be earned through pain. But that's a lie conditioned into you by environments that wanted your compliance more than your confidence. And if no one ever taught you how to stand tall in your worth, understand this. The ability to walk away from what diminishes you is not rejection, it's reclamation. It's the moment your soul says, enough. Enough settling, enough justifying, enough tolerating what drains your spirit. There is deep strength in walking away without anger, without drama, without needing to be understood. Because your healing isn't a group project. Your growth doesn't require consensus. You don't have to wait for someone to wake up and finally see your value. You can choose yourself, today, right now, regardless of whether they ever do. That's what true empowerment looks like. Not loud, not desperate, but steady and unshakable. A quiet decision to no longer participate in your own disrespect. You can't control who respects you, but you can absolutely control who has access to you. And that's where your power lives. It's not in forcing others to treat you better. It's in removing yourself from situations where they refuse to. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. Boundaries aren't walls to keep others out. They're doors you guard, only opening for those who come with peace, not chaos. With truth, not manipulation. With intention, not convenience. The moment you raise your standards is the moment the world starts responding differently, because people will always treat you at the level you treat yourself. If you show up with desperation, they give you crumbs. If you show up with presence and clarity, they meet you with weight. So let your presence be a reflection of the self-respect you've cultivated in silence. Let your actions speak what your words no longer need to explain. Not everyone will like the version of you that refuses to be mistreated, but you weren't born to please. You were born to be free. And freedom begins where self-abandonment ends. You are not too much, you are not too strong, you are not too direct. You are simply no longer available for environments where your softness is weaponized and your strength is seen as a threat. Let that be your standard, and everything unlike it will naturally fall away. Respect begins where self-awareness grows. The more you understand your worth, the less room you make for people who refuse to see it. This is not about ego. It's not about pretending to be untouchable. It's about truth. The truth that you matter, that your voice is valid, that your energy is sacred. When you deeply realize this, something inside you shifts. You stop begging. You stop chasing. You stop explaining yourself to people who only listen to respond, not to understand. You begin to move differently, more grounded, more centered, less reactive, more intentional. Disrespect often comes in quiet forms, dismissive tones, subtle jabs, consistent neglect. And over time, these small cuts bleed your confidence dry. You question yourself. You overanalyze your words. You doubt your instincts. But here's the reality. Anyone who makes you shrink is not someone who deserves to stand beside you. The ones who truly respect you won't create confusion. They won't make you second-guess your own reality. They'll meet you with clarity, consistency, and care. That's the standard now. No exceptions. To uphold this standard, you must become fiercely protective of your space. This isn't coldness, this is clarity. The people you allow into your life influence how you feel, how you think, how you show up in the world. And when you keep giving time to those who drain you, you rob your future self of the peace, joy, and alignment you deserve. Let that sink in. Your time is not a donation. Your energy is not a discount item for those unwilling to match your depth. You are not responsible for fixing those who keep breaking you. Self-respect isn't built in a single moment. It's built in every small choice to honor your truth. Every time you say no when it's easier to stay silent. Every time you walk away from comfort to protect your peace. Every time you decide that being alone is better than being surrounded by people who make you feel invisible. These moments matter. They stack. They shape who you become. And eventually they create a version of you that no longer tolerates disrespect because you've tasted what it feels like to live in alignment. With your values, with your truth, with your power. This is the foundation for a new kind of life. One where your self-worth isn't tied to other people's approval. One where you don't have to shrink to fit into spaces that were never built for you. One where you stop confusing familiarity with respect. Just because you've known someone for years doesn't mean they're entitled to your time. Just because they've been around doesn't mean they've shown up. Start choosing presence over proximity. Start choosing energy over history. And most importantly, start choosing yourself, not out of bitterness, but out of deep, unwavering love. That's the path forward. That's how you rise. And you don't need anyone's permission to begin.